So when we were looking for participants or even ideas at all for these panels, one of the things that came up was shadow work. And in the comments, I wrote how I do shadow work in lucid dreaming, in lucid dreams, and people expressed an interest. And so this is basically what I found to be really helpful and also really efficient, because you're doing this, making these shifts while you sleep. But I do have just some foundational stuff to go over. I know we posted in the Lightworker Support Group. I tried to share in other places as well. And so some of this, you might feel like you already know when I say like, the one truth is love, and there's nothing that could taint the light of love, etc. Like these kinds of things, and maybe you already know that, or maybe you believe that, or maybe you're in the middle, like, nah, I'm not sure what to believe, or maybe you wandered in here somehow or other, and you're just like, wow, that's just a bunch of horse crap, right? And so I'm just giving you my take on it, what I've come to know, what I've come to believe. And I call this the foundation rule, that the one truth is love, is the frequency of love. We do a metaphor to say that this is light. And as you see in the video, it's the ultimate field of conscious awareness of love, of the frequency of love as the foundation. And then as spirits, we could each be like these little lights. And so we are that. If you ever heard that saying, like, I am that, or just that foundational I amness, that's our truth. Like, that's what we are. And then in a body, we show up as who we are, as a particular human A or human B, depending on the lifetime that we're living. So I also abide, and I posted on this the other day when someone had a question in their group, by a threefold mission in my life. I'm here to amplify love. I'm here to help call back to love anything that was imprinted with something other than love, and to also be a guardian for love. And all three of these come into play in the shadow work. But what I've noticed for myself was, especially in the lucid dreaming, was I get scared. And so being that guardian for myself to say, like, no, I'm not imprinting myself with this frequency, this fear frequency or dark frequency or whatever, that to really be able to stand in that, like, no doubt that nothing could touch the light. So that's where I ground myself as I approach everything in life, in these days, even business and what have you. So I'll read this off the screen. Like, what is the shadow? Sorry, I don't know why it's doing that blue thing on the bottom, but the shadow represents the subconscious hidden aspect of an individual's personality, which may include repressed feelings, desires, memories, or traits that have been deemed unacceptable or incompatible with one's self-image. These aspects are often called the shadow because they are in the shadow of one's typical waking conscious awareness. And I purposely put that lowercase there because I just told you how even quantum physicists now say that the foundation of everything is conscious awareness, with capital C, capital A, and even our universe exists in conscious awareness. And so everything is based on this larger consciousness field. So in a body, I'm awake, I'm conscious, but am I connected to that bigger field? It depends on the time of day, etc. And I'll stop there to see if anyone has any questions or thoughts or questions about what the shadow is. So the shadows are not bad. And these, again, are in the dark. They're pushed away down into like the basement or the cellar or behind bars, or exiled away, banished from our internal system. And I saw something on LinkedIn the other day, and it was kind of super interesting and a little heartbreaking as well. It was a man who posts about people in their older age and all these good stuff he's up to or whatever. And he talked about this woman, 68 years old, where she's finally enjoying her sexuality in life. And when she was younger, she had so much shame around her fantasies, right? And so these could be things that, again, is it part of the self-image that we're okay with, or what society tells us is okay? And so when she was younger, she had repressed so much of herself, and then when she was married, she was there to please her husband. That's the way she was thinking. And so now 68 years old, and she's having the the time of her life when it comes to sexuality. It's really cool. It's in one way heartbreaking, in another way really inspiring. So again, these shadows are not bad. They're like shoved down, shoved away from our system. And so that's why with the frequency, it's not the love frequency down here, but it's not necessarily a bad frequency, right? It's just, it has an imprint of something else, like shame, could be fear, could be guilt, it could be all kinds of things. I also have a diagram to show everything I've been rattling on about with the foundation of everything as conscious awareness. This is, we call it a post-materialistic view. You might call it a quantum physics view, other ways we call it, that the form comes from the formless, almost like popcorn popping out. And so this is in stark contrast to the old school materialistic or physicalist view that just shot too quickly across the screen there, that said matter is at the foundation of everything. And from physics comes, chemistry, and from that comes biochemistry, and then biology, and then one reason or another, now we have consciousness. But then this model cannot explain the work of mediums, the work of psychics, the work of the research involving thousands and thousands and thousands of children that they couldn't ignore on past live memories. And so we reject, or I reject this, and a lot of people who are light workers say, like, no, this is not where it's at. And if you think of, as we were ingrained with this, like physics and matter, if we took all the empty space out of all the atoms in the earth, so we take the earth, all the living creatures on it, and if we could like take away all the empty space, guess how big everything would shrink down to? You could put that in the chat. All right, so
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. What do you mean? How big in?
So when you picture an atom, most of the atom is, quote, empty space and not something physical. And so if you take a proton or a neutron, or even an electron, but I think they even say the electrons have no mass, and you picture all the empty space, and like if we could just magically suck away all that empty space, well, this is true. Kathy says that's why I said it in quotes. So I don't know if you saw the chat. They're now saying there is no empty space. That's why I did the quotes, because it's not actually empty. It's actually full of energy. So if you took away all the stuff that we've grown so fond of in terms of touching and saying that there's matter and there's all this physical stuff, and took out that empty space, it would be the whole earth and all of us, all the creatures on it, it would shrink down to the size of the Roman Colosseum. So though we can't see it, that empty space is really outweighs by more than, I don't know, 0.0000. Like the percentage is crazy. So I don't know if you want to play around with that. You could even go to ChatGPT and ask, but it's I can't even remember the ratio because it's like that tiny. So anyway, that's just to ground us in this idea, or knowing, because if you've had all these experiences, then you've already tuned into spirit. You've already tuned into connecting with them as a medium. I know there's a bunch of mediums on here, or as a psychic, or even in your dreams, right? Like sometimes our loved ones come back to us, or just little nudges or snags or whispers. And so I do believe you are a multidimensional spiritual giant. Shaman Doric once said, you're this spiritual giant crammed into this teensy weensy thumbelina of a body. So one day I kind of drew that. And to go with the analogy of like, here's our beautiful spirit, this light projected through this biological spacesuit, but how much are we letting in versus how much are we blocking? So we're always this 100% perfect spirit. And so as we talk about shadow work, and that's kind of what's going on here, and you can't make it out, right? Because it's blocking out. The shadows are in the dark. They're not known to us because they're hidden away. But then we even have some other parts of us that want to keep the shadow away. So for that woman that I was saying, who I don't know her, but let's say she was having sexual fantasies when she was younger, and part of her is like, oh, that's not ladylike, or another part of her was like, oh, you have to be a good wife, and like shoving away further burying and banishing those shadows. So again, shadows are not bad. And even the parts that are blocking us from the shadow, like every part of us, every part of this biological spacesuit is trying to be helpful. And it's always going to be helpful, or I put in quotes, helpful, right? Because is that really helpful of this part that's banishing the other parts of us? It's trying to protect us maybe from getting rejected, or now you're divorced and now you're out on your own and all these things, right? Or whatever. We have these parts of us like popping up to chime in. So when we see our connection to the larger consciousness field and super conscious, and where we start to have conscious awareness, our shadows are living here in the subconscious. And so I made it as like this little shadow part holding this burden, like, and hidden away in this little cave. And then for the other parts that I was just mentioning, we do get to experience those, right, as different little helpful voices in our head coming to take center stage to prevent that shadow from arising, or to, if it is arising, to, here's like a firefighter, like kind of drowning it out, right? And so we have this proactive nature of ourselves to keep the shadows down, and then a reactive nature, different parts as well. And so this is what I remember watching. I bet Erica knows what movie this one's from. Nothing to see here, please disperse, right? That's what our protector parts are doing, keeping those shadows at bay, keeping them down. Oh, nothing to see here. Don't look. I want to say Naked Gun, but I don't know if that's quite right. And so we have all these different parts. I think this is the language everyone tends to use, like part of me wants to be fit and this other part of me really wants to eat that brownie, right? And you kind of have these sometimes parts against each other, parts that are sometimes in cahoots with each other. And so on the one hand, it just keeps us focused more on this earthling suit, the biological space suit. Again, the scribble isn't bad, but it kind of clouds that connection to our beautiful spirit. And we can have parts that are being led by our spirit, and they call that self with a capital S, led. And so for any parts that have burdens, we could work with them to call back to love those burdens, so they could drop the burdens and take on roles that are just more naturally beneficial for the whole system. And by the way, these parts don't like having these roles either, right? The shadow doesn't necessarily like hiding in a cave, and those other parts that squish it down don't like that role that they have either. So this is again to show the form coming from the formless. There's even videos on YouTube of like the little energies kind of hitting together and becoming like subatomic particles, like the Higgs field and all this stuff, like you can look at, but I get silly. I make it like popcorn, like the form coming from the formless, popping up like popcorn, which means sometimes things bang into each other and things take on an imprint of something other than love. And that's what we're dealing with a lot with our shadow parts, are the wounds they carry, the shame they carry, the burdens they carry. And so it is, and somewhere I have it, it's like literally a coin. And if I'm happy to mail you one if you give me your address, because I have a ton of these, where I don't know if you could see because I can't see myself, where we're like flipping the coin, where we're calling back to love anything that's become imprinted with something other than love. So this is what the coin has on both sides. And so if you want one, you could send me your address after this. And here it is too. This works for lucid dreaming and shadow work combined, like I'm talking about today. But it works with anything, even if there's an entity that a lot of times when people die, they're confused. They don't know they're dead, or they have guilt or fears or all this kind of stuff. And this is meant to show too that the light, even if that looks really scary to us, any amount of darkness can't touch the light. I also put music notes on here because there was something that really, really helped me with my lucid dreaming. It was Shaman Doric in one of his trainings. He just started singing one time, "When there's fright, send it to the light. And it made me laugh so hard. And I thought, wow, this is going to be great for when I lucid dream, because at that time I was getting scared of all these things. And if you stay in love and if you trust what Charlie Morley, who's a lucid dreaming expert, calls your dreamer, that you are able to stay in love, right? And just face anything. So for example, I had this, it was like this demonic voice in my ear telling me how it was going to curse my family and curse me. I was trying to help cross over this young woman and this young boy, help them cross into the light. And this demonic voice was coming in to say, like, I'll curse you and your family. And I said, I reject that. Nothing could touch the light of love. And by the way, I love you. Why don't you go into the light too? And just, that's all I kept saying to this voice. And eventually that voice went away. And I was just there with the woman and the child. So, so I'll leave it at that for today's talk, but to get back to it, maybe it's the silly song I just sang. Maybe it's some song that has another meaning to you to just help you embody and remember and hold that frequency of love, to be that guardian for yourself, that protector of your own energy. All right. Oh, cool. So people putting the chat. All right, good. Awesome sauce.
Linda's here too.
Yes.
Got here.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. So we did connect, and we have very complementary approaches to what we're talking about. So I'm so excited. And then we have a combined meditation that we'll do as well. So again, everything about our biological spacesuit is going to be helpful or helpful. And when we look at what's going on with what we're born with, today we're focusing on, I love Dr. Wayne Dyer calls it, ego is earth guide only, right? So we're born with that. Actually, it's really more than one. I say it's like all these parts that are there to help us and help us stay alive. And they're doing their best. So it's always a helpful intent. Is it a helpful impact in our lives? Sometimes not so much. And sometimes we're born with parts that already have roles that maybe are more helpful than truly helpful. We're hearing more and more about epigenetics, if you like science, where things that are passed down, fears, etc., and traumas passed down genetically to the generations. But for the most part, we're born with parts that have they're truly resourceful, truly helpful qualities. If you've ever taken a personality style test, then like, oh, this is my personality style, right? And so we're kind of born with a lot of it, but our life experience also shapes it. And so here you could see that a lot of these parts took on burdens. So perhaps a bunch of these became shadow parts as well. So again, the shadow definition that we're working with today, and then using an IFS model for shadow work. IFS stands for internal family systems. And so we all have this. Give me a yes if you've ever noticed that you have like a cast of characters in your head, like different parts, or if you've ever said, part of me wants to do this, part of me wants to do that. Or even I think about talking to someone who's like, deciding to stay with someone or not stay with someone. And it's so hard sometimes. I remember like deciding to break up with people, etc., because there's these different inner conflicts, right? Different parts. So in the 1980s, in the field of psychology or psychotherapy, this internal family systems model came about for that exact reason. Clients and patients were talking about part of me this, part of me that. So the original shadow term, as far as I know, came from Carl Jung. And so this is, and that was probably way, way back in the early 1900s. So this IFS is now evidence-backed, and it's so popular that you can't even get trained in it. Really, there's a lottery. I was on a wait list for 3 years. I've kind of given up on getting certified in it. But part of the reason why I don't want to get certified in it, or I won't pursue the lottery, etc., is because I use it in terms of self with the lowercase s. So I use it in terms of personal development, coaching, consulting, corporate work, etc., versus in counseling. So I will tell you that I am not a therapist and I am not IFS certified. I did take a 12-hour PESI program. There's also an exciting program. It's a 30-hour free IFS immersion. So I could give you the link to that. You get to watch, you have a month access. So even if you download PDFs or what have you, if you're interested in this, you could get access to that. But I'm not a certified IFS professional, but most importantly, I am not a therapist. So we're using this here in terms of our own personal shadow work. I am not a substitute for a therapist, etc. So to be clear on that, I'm staying within my scope of practice. And so we do have these different parts. The parts that we call shadows are what are called exiles in IFS. So literally banished, literally exiled. So if you were a child and you had this really a bad childhood wound or pain or trauma, and part of you gets tucked away, locked away. So it's a double insult to the shadow, because not only is it holding the wound, all the other parts are like, yeah, stay away, stay away. So we want to have that compassion. And so hopefully you're starting to sense that you have a lot of compassion for all the parts, but also those shadows. Sometimes people are scared by the word shadow, like it's bad. Not at all, not at all, not at all. So some of the parts that try to keep that shadow at bay will be proactively doing so. We call those managers, like, oh, if I do this and if I do that, and then I'll be perfect and people will like me and no one will reject me and blah, 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 or whatever. And then you have also the reactive protectors that if that exile's trying to escape, if the shadow's coming up, it'll try to firefight it down. So here's some images I found online that speak to this and relate to how we all talk in parts, whether it was this show from way back, I want to say in the 80s with Herman's Head, to the kids movie. One of the people who's really big in internal family systems actually was the main consultant on this movie, Dr. Frank Anderson. Here was a book. I love this. She called it the green and red egos. So that goes in line with that mnemonic I like from Dr. Wayne Dyer with the Earth Guide only. So it's not just one ego, it's a whole bunch. Or parts, and then part of me, I wanted to part of me. And this one's funny too. I have so many things to do. And so the manager part is like, we have to do all these things. And the other part is like, wow, that's so stressful. Why don't we go have a nice glass of wine? Or in this case, take a quiz to see what kind of cheese I am. So we see this, but we have to remember there's no bad parts. This was something I made when I was playing around with the Earth Guide only. And there's a book literally called No Bad Parts. So Dr. Richard Schwartz is the founder of IFS. He's the one who started noticing all that and putting it together back in the 1980s. I put into AI art. I thought it came out kind of hilarious. You can imagine this part, let's go on an adventure. And this part, no, we'll get hurt, right? And so, there's lots of free videos on IFS, free web posts. It's been around since the 80s. So it's so easy. If you're into ChatGPT, even if you ask it, answer me from an IFS model, here's what's going on with me, what might be my exile or my shadow. It's incredible how good it does. So in the IFS model, there's also a part that's not a part, and I would call that the spirit. It maps to our spirit, and that's self and self energy. And so for a lot of people, they're completely blocking out that light, blocking out that self and self energy. Here's a little illustration I made of this like youthful, perfect, great creative qualities, or all different kind of childlike beauty qualities. Something happens and now that part is banished. It's carrying some kind of burden, becomes a shadow part. This is visualizing those protectors who want to keep the shadow in its place and keep it away. I'll give you this, of course, I'll give you the whole presentation. This goes into deeper examples than we want to go to today for going into lucid dreaming to get to our shadows. But as you could probably guess, the shadows are so hidden, we're really not going to find those. Maybe our dreams will give us hints to it, but in our day-to-day, as we're becoming self-aware of the parts, we're not going to see the shadow. What we are going to see pop up are these parts, so it could be an inner critic, a people pleaser, a caretaker. It could be, someone, a part of us that's telling us to binge on something, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Again, this is a comprehensive model. I'm not qualified to help people who have suicidal ideations, et cetera, et cetera. So my suggestion there would be to know that there are IFS professionals who are therapists, psychotherapists, doctors, et cetera. So this is just meant to be an example what that part looks like in our body as it pops up. And it's not just a voice in our heads, but it's feelings and sensations. So I'm excited. Linda will be talking about the energies and chakras and stuff. So you could really feel where all these parts are at. And I believe she'll also talk about feeling into the shadow from the energetic point as well. But we know we have a lot of self energy in our system. A lot of you who connect to sitting in the power and do connecting and grounding to get into your practices as mediums and psychics and light workers in general, you are connecting to what IFS would call self energy, and then not only within yourself, but like beyond your own spirit, connecting to that larger field. So these are good qualities to know and check in. Am I showing up with self energy? I've always said that IFS would save the world. And this is a lovely quote that, if more and more people are showing up, and you could translate that, more and more showing up with their spirit shining through. I brought some toys, right? Like if I'm completely connected, I might be like this, and not too much mind stuff or body stuff going on. But just in the day to day, if I'm connected, it's some of the suit stuff, some of the stuff that I have to focus on my earth spacesuit, but also guided by my spirit, right? Or people, who are just kind of completely blocked out. So the light is always there. It's like, are we blocking it out? How much is coming through? And this is a very practical way to, even in corporate, I don't know if people have day jobs or whatever, to really get people connected to their self, right? And really let their spirit shine through. This is a change I noticed in myself. I used to listen to Dr. Wayne Dyer a lot, and he said something: when you have the choice, and you always do, to be kind or to be right, to choose kind. So one part of me was charged with, you have to be kind. Dr. Wayne said be kind. And so part of me, I'm from New York, you'd kind of get pissed off and call people idiots all the time. And so my parts were chiming in, but that's still adding a lot of extra effort in the system. And then now I just show up kind of spirit led. So parts drop their narration, things that are affecting us in the embodied sense, that all could be called back to love. And yet another diagram showing that we are already spiritually 100% perfect. It's more about unobscuring, calling back to love, and remembering. All right. So I wanted to paint a clear foundation. I know that took a lot, but when you go into lucid dreaming to do shadow work, you're going to want to and again, you're going to sense where you are on that scale from this is horseshit to I know this, to or I believe this, or I want to believe this, or this song will help me stay in love, because that's what you're doing in your dream, is you're calling this all forward, and you want to show up in love, as love, to give out the love to your shadow parts. So lucid dreaming is you're dreaming, but you're dreaming. And how many people have had this happen, even not on purpose, where you were like, oh, wow, I'm dreaming right now? You could put a yes in the chat.
I wish I could.
Oh, interesting. Have you had spirits visit you in your dream?
Not really. No, they visit me when I'm awake.
Interesting. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll give you my favorite trick for lucid dreaming today. There's tons of other ways to induce lucid dreams. This one seemed to be, when I did some research a while back, the one that won out as the best way to, get the highest percent of people into lucid dreams. Just let me know if you want to know more, because I'll give you one technique today. And there's, as always, like tons of free stuff on YouTube, etc. But you could always tag me too, and I could even point you in the direction of other things. So here's the process. Again, I'll give you the slide deck. But before you sleep, you're doing some stuff, right? Cool. Loving to learn lucid dreaming. And we could even do another talk on someone. I could get a panelist who like that's their specialty, right? So let's do that. I know we'll post it in our group, of course, to see if there are people who that's, what they love to share with the world as their thing, right? And I'm also in an astral academy, and a lot of people, that's for astral projection, a lot of people who are in the astral academy are jumping out of body via lucid dreams. So there's a bunch of people in there who could potentially do that as well. Yeah, so let's do that. So know that that's coming. So the first thing is you're going to, Erica says, I'll see if I can look up what class it was. She did an awesome $10 class on Udemy on lucid dreaming. Yes, Erica, please do. We're going to put together all the resources from today. So from myself and from Linda. And if you have resources as well, we'll add that to the list. And then we'll certainly do a follow-up on specifically lucid dreaming. So a lot of people already answered when I asked if you see the parts within yourself. Everyone got some big yeses and absolutelys and all these big responses. So paying attention to that is going to help you. I could just say find a target, because maybe you're not going to want to target your shadow. Maybe you're going to want to target one of your protector parts, or maybe I want to target my binge eater part or my inner child or something like this. I was watching Station 19 of all shows, and one of the characters says hysterical historical, and she keeps saying hysterical historical. So like when she notices her triggers and she's like emotionally charged more so than it would be called for in that situation, right? Then she knows that there's something based on her experience that's, encoded in her biological spacesuit. And then I was thinking warnings and wounds, right? Like, so those things that come up or different things that are coming up, going off for you might be significant of wounds, and thus pointing you in the direction of your shadow. And again, this is always done in the helpful sense. The encodings that we get in our brain, or the parts that take on burdens, they're at the time, it's truly helpful to the system to keep us alive, but they don't drop those roles. And so then that's where it becomes helpful in quotes, right? Like, so if at the time me being a people pleaser as a young person prevented my mom from whacking me in the face and throwing my head against the wall, then that truly was helpful, being quiet, etc., right? But if that part's still telling me to do that today, well, that's what I'd put as helpful. It's like, no, I grew up. I could actually take my mom on now, right? And so you want to have these conversations. And I've actually done the lucid dream where I called forth my inner child, and I will talk to you about that one. Keeping a dream journal. This might also give you ideas of the shadow. Remember, the shadow lives in the subconscious, and when we're dreaming, that's where we mostly are anyway. So you might get a clue of the shadow part that you'd like to work with. The fourth thing here is craft and document your sankalpa. This is or they say sankalpa. This is your intention. And I say formed by the heart and mind. Actually, I don't think that's from me, but I've noticed this when I've had sankalpas. And it's like, here's my intention to meet my inner child, right? And so I could have, even in my dream journal, say, I want to meet my inner child and find out and hug my inner child and let them know I'm all grown up and everything's cool and blah, 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 or whatever, right? And so it could be a long thing you journal on, but you're going to come up with a short way of making it happen when you realize that you're dreaming. So inner child now, right? It's just like sankalpa, inner child now. And when I first said it, nothing happened. But when I said it with like a soulful, or, down to my core spirit, chorus of core essences, and said, inner child now, like with like this willful but aligned. So I like that this says of heart and mind. It's really heart, mind, and spirit to like call this forth. When I've had wimpy, like, oh, I'm starting lucid dreaming and I'm just gonna go to New York because that's easy and I don't want to face my shadow. Well, it didn't work. And I asked Charlie Morley, who is one of the experts on lucid dreaming, and he said, Jessica, your subconscious, or I don't know if he said your dreamer or your subconscious, is a trickster. It knows you're only saying you want to go to New York because you're avoiding doing that other thing, right? So being able to stay in that frequency of love is really important, and being able to know what it has to be real. That's what I'm saying. It's like, this has to be you really, truly, heart, mind, soul, spirit, everything. You want this to happen in your lucid dream. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. So find the thing that you want to connect with in the lucid dream, right? So maybe it's your shadow up the bat. Maybe it's a different part of you. And this is the technique for lucid dreaming that works the best. It says before sleep here, but I should say it's actually going to work better if you do it after you've already slept through those earlier phases of sleep. So if you're someone like me who wakes up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, I would do it at that point. Or maybe you'd set an alarm for something like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. or something like that. And then do this, where you just keep, as you're lying there to fall asleep, saying, tonight when I'm dreaming, I know that I'm dreaming. Tonight when I'm dreaming, I know that I'm dreaming. And so you keep saying that over and over and over again. And that, I'm sorry, I couldn't find the article, but it did say that that was the best, like percentage-wise, technique that worked for people when they, studied which technique works best. So that was a lot. So I'll stop to see if there are questions.
Well, I had my hand up a couple of times because a couple of questions came up. That's okay. No, don't be sorry. I wanted you to finish here, but I kind of forgot a couple of things. One is, okay, we talked about emotional triggers. So say I texted my mom and I said, here's some information about XYZ. And she texts me back, well, that's not, she comes back with something nasty. Okay. When my intention was to tell her something good.
Yeah.
But she comes back with something nasty. Okay. Now I know, because of my own healing process, I understand that I'm triggered by that because that's just who she is. You know what I mean? I understand that. But when you're in the midst of it, when you're still in, because there's different phases of recovery from trauma or PTSD. Right. What would you say to somebody who was still having that trigger and they know that they're being triggered by what their conditioning is, by the way they were raised by a narcissistic mother?
Yeah.
What do you say to that person when, okay, now I'm going to be in a flurry for 2 weeks. See, now I'm in a flurry for about 5 minutes and I'm like, whatever, that's just mom.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I would say those encodings could get uninstalled. So like even with the parts, the big thing is that like if parts have burdens, they could drop those burdens. If you have traumatic encodings in your brain, those could get uninstalled. So what happens when you are experiencing a big threat or a trauma or even something novel? So it goes both ways. It's those big moments in life. So it happens for both. But what happens is we get these really fast gamma waves sweeping through the brain, and the amygdala is like, this is so threatening. We better remember everything about it. So it encodes not only the story of what happened, but it encodes what did it smell like? What did it look like? What color shirt? What color hair? And even things that aren't dangerous of themselves, like was it cloudy sky or were you in an office? And so it's trying to remember everything it can to give you that signal next time anything similar happens, it's going to go off, right? And so It's a very rapid reaction in the amygdala, in the actual neurons in the cell membrane, where these little receptors pop up called AMPA receptors, and they get super glued in place for all those different senses. The stuff for the episodic memory is more in your hippocampus. And so what we do in that case, and we could even do an extra Zoom on this one. It's called havening techniques, where you bring up that memory. It could be the memory when your mom pissed you off in the text, or it could be a memory from your childhood. And we activate it just quick enough to get those receptors jazzed up. Because when those encodings get put in place, and I say super glued, it's meant to stay there indefinitely because it wants to help. Again, it's helpful. It wants you to stay alive. Anything like this happens again. And so by purposefully activating it real quick, and then we do these touch with havening that get delta waves going. So if you ever heard of the soothing touch, healing touch, all this, so they did studies,
or even the tapping, right?
Exactly. That's tapping. Havening came out because they wanted to see, why does tapping work? Why does EMDR work? Why does acupressure work? Why does acupuncture work? And then they said, and they never tried to make something new. It was Dr. Ron Rudin. He's an MD, and his brother, who's an MD too, but a dentist. They wanted to study this, and they realized it was delta waves. So as you do the tapping, you get these delta waves going too. And then they said, well, where do we get the most delta waves? And so they found face. And so you could actually set off a whole new cascade where those receptors get uninstalled, or if you like the technical word, endocytosis, were literally eaten up by the cell membrane. So for God, any,
amazing. You're awesome.
Yeah. And
I need to make an appointment with you. Okay.
I would love to we should do another Zoom on it too, because the funny thing was, while I was getting certified in havening, people were getting visits from deceased loved ones. And I'm like, what's up with that? I asked other practitioners, and they're like, yeah, that happens to us too. And then I was trying to do, and anyone who wants to try it one-on-one, I think I have over 85% success rate of doing the havening with imagination and connecting to people across the veil. So
yes, add that to your list, please.
Yeah, we'll definitely add that.
Thank you.
Going extra.
Mary has a question now.
But I also do want to say, Mary, I want to take your question. I did want to say, I love that Erica said, remember, it's okay to lucid dream for fun too. Like, if you truly, I was trying to do something fun as a scapegoat, right? But if you want to fly and you're like, hey, I'd love to lucid dream so I could fly or do this or that, that's what I'm saying. It has to be aligned, but fun is a perfect sankalpa, right? If that's what's aligned for you, then go for it. Good. So Mary?
Yeah. Hi. There was two things. I was going to suggest, I mean, I'm not a practitioner or an expert, but the things that you just brought up as part of the reason why I raised my hand.
Oh, cool.
The tapping in particular. Part of what tapping does is it breaks the cycle of it breaks the response. You're basically reliving the trauma in your system, to put it, I can't get into the science of it because I'm not a researcher. I've been tapping for myself for 6 years and have worked on and off with practitioner, and I was fortunate enough to get into one clinical study.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, it was a really good experience. It was all on Zoom, 6 weeks, and we broke out and worked one-on-one with a practitioner for the subject.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was really great. And I'm certainly not far enough along in my own healing for all the considerable stuff that I've been through, but it's definitely something like Christy might want to look at. The EMDR I know less about, because you really have to go through a therapist to do it. And if you can't find one that's covered by your insurance, it's very expensive. But they're all the same principle.
Right.
You're going to a memory or something that represents memory for you, and you're breaking the cycle, which is something that it's a whole fascinating new knowledge about how the brain works, about how we store trauma, and it's saving people's lives because it's like a realization of you can't just talk your way out of trauma.
No, you cannot.
And The other thing is the shadow work thing for me. I mean, this is the way I interpreted it, is that, or maybe this is just my experience since I have bizarre experiences, repeat experiences in my life that are coming from the unresolved trauma in the shadow part. And there are certain things that I go on repeat over and over. I'm not asking you for an answer, and not asking you, because the answer, but that's what I'm just bringing that up because I don't know if that was really brought up here. That's kind of what I was told and also how I interpreted it. Like, for instance, I have an issue, just as an example, not asking for solutions or anything right now. I'm having an issue with certain men fixating on me. It starts to escalate almost to stalking. It's happening again with somebody. I've gone through this over and over and over again. And I've done all the things that people say to do, white light, break cords, all this stuff. I've come to the conclusion there's something in my subconscious that's unresolved that's quote unquote making this happen because I don't know what other answer there is. Does that make sense that that's a place to look at to see if something like that keeps happening?
Yeah.
Because this latest situation is really freaking me out. This guy has stepped up to the next level. I've been fortunate that I've not had a situation where someone has gotten violent with me, but it's happening again. And I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
In my prayers and everything, I'm saying, what is the answer here? What am I not seeing that you need me to do? Is this a place that you think I could look at?
Yes, that's the alignment we seek in the for this slide here, and to craft a sankalpa, or you like being like, I have a dream, I meet the part of me that is putting out the vibes that attracts all these stalkers, and when I yell, whatever it is, like you could name that part of you, or shadow, if you want to just call it your shadow, and when I yell shadow now, it's going to come to me. I'm going to see what it's doing, why it's doing it, what I could do for it, what it wants me to know. But the ultimate thing is, no surprise, is that when you get that part and you have your lucid dream and you yell out your sankalpa with that willful intention behind it, that they're just going to hug it. Even if you say nothing to it and have no conversation with it, even if you just hug it, and any other monster looking or demon looking thing that pops up too, you just hug it all, even if it's like hurts, if it's hurting you. I've had one time it like claws in me, and first I'm clawing back and I'm like, wait, no, I love you, and then it turned in from something scary and dark to like a really either sad or like, it's just so interesting. So that's why staying in that love is so important. But that's a perfect one because it's like, you're like, okay, I'm going to crack this, right? I need to solve it. There's something here.
Well,
and
it's distressing to live with. Like I said,
yeah.
I hope I'm not triggering anybody here. I know what people's experience are, and I want to be absolutely clear.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's an element of attracting the pattern. I am not blaming myself for it, period, end of discussion. And I am not blaming any woman who has had a problem.
Right.
I consider myself fortunate that it has not escalated, but the fact that it hasn't escalated, it hits a certain level and stays there is starting to tell me there's something going, I already know that there's something else going on here, but the approach to breaking the pattern. So I will try this because I don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So, and then trusting the experience. I like the term Charlie Morley uses of the dreamer. Like he says that he calls it the dreamer because you have a lot of influence in the lucid dream, but you don't have, or at least I've never met anyone who's had like 100% control over their lucid dream. So it's not like our waking reality. It's a dream reality, and you could command stuff. I would also say, don't be afraid to command. We're not demanding and being mean. We're commanding something for the highest good, highest good of ourselves and everyone else who we're going to interact with after, right? And just like with Alexa, you wouldn't say, oh, Alexa, could you please check on lucid dreaming books for me? What's she going to do with that, right? You say, I'm not going to do it because she'll talk back to me. You say, her name, search on lucid dreaming books, right? And so we have to use that same command, or it's just like a clear, concise, connected communication, right? So people don't like the word command, but you have to do it. You have to have that will behind it. And if you have a song or a go-to or something to help you stay in the frequency of love, you might have to call on that to remember. Like I was digging into that person's, it was like this cloaked giant black monster thing, and it was digging into me with claws, and I was digging back, and then I was like, wait, no. And I started like loving on it instead. So those are the steps. I did have a little reminder here of nothing. So anything I was telling you about that demon voice, like, you know this, most of you like, spirits don't really have like bodies or faces or voices, right? They're using our own machinery to like come through to us. So like, that voice was a scary voice, but is that really what that entity was? No, right? So something to help you remember that that one truth. And so that is that, like, love, and no matter how big the darkness, as long as you're showing up and calling to your spirit guides, etc., right? Like, so in this group I could say things like that too. It's like, you actually don't have to go it alone in your lucid dream.
I've been relying on Archangel Michael again.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
I'm unnerved by what this guy did the other day, but I'm also just exasperated. And as I just want to say, just to lighten the mood, I'm Italian Irish heritage from New York. I'm not afraid of commanding.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm from New York as well.
It's like, I'll command.
So I actually want to end myself there. And I know we started late. It was like almost
I actually have to go. I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time.
No, I'm so glad you brought that up. And
thank you.
I think we'll have time for more questions at the end. But for anyone who was, we have the time block officially for another 15 minutes. So I want to let Linda do her presentation. And I'm happy to stick around extra, and we are recording, but I don't want to let it go too long beyond the slots that we needed.
Hi everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I wanted to just give my perspective on what I've done and what I understand about shadow work. And we'll go through it. I was going to go through, well, what is shadow, but I think we all know what our shadows are. And a lot of us, especially people like us who are empaths or psychics or highly sensitive people, have developed our intuitive abilities through probably a lot of times, a lot of cases, through childhood trauma, because there's a piece of our inner child there that was deeply affected when we were a child. And of course, if we don't have the right kind of support from a parent or a loving family, we tend to not know how to deal with this because we're children. So it gets stuck in our bodies. So when a trigger comes along, and it might not even be anything really terrible, but it's just something that activates that hurt part in our body, and then it escalates into a dark place, a place where we don't feel safe, where we're feeling anxiety or fear or something that just doesn't work well. And sometimes we even get stuck there, and it's hard to pull ourselves out. So what I wanted to talk about, let's see if I can share the share screen. Okay, what this is a frequency chart of basically your emotions. These are in hertz. And as we can see from the chart, and I really like this chart, because you have all your emotions over here, and it gives you like sort of a cutoff here, different stages of ultimately trying to get to enlightenment. So, we see shame down here and guilt, apathy, and so forth. So when we are triggered and we do have a shadow that's actively talking to us and maybe, you know, telling us things that probably aren't true and making us feel bad, we're living somewhere down here in the suffering zone. And I can say without a doubt that fear is probably one of the biggest ones. And then I think it's also one of the harder ones to keep intact, keep at bay, and to even realize when it starts rising up in our body, to, you know, be aware of it, to recognize it. And that, I think, is a big part of the struggle. You got to just learn how to recognize, I'm going to fear. What's happening here? Is this a red alert, or is this something that that I can handle? Can I do a little breathing to make myself feel better? Whatever it is to make yourself calm down. This chart also, with the coloring, and it flows along with the chakra systems in your body, which I wanted to talk a little bit about. I think most people already kind of know that we have these energy systems in our body, starting at the base of the spine to the top of the head. Let's see if I can share this one. There we go. From the root chakra all the way up to the crown chakra. So we just saw what all those frequency numbers were from that chart. And we can see down here that when we start to activate even just the very basic root chakra, we're already at over 400 hertz. And if we come back to this chart, to where we want to go, we find that 400 is somewhere way up here in an expanded consciousness already. So even at that lowest frequency chakra, if you can get the energy moving in that, it's automatically going to bring up your vibration. And then you can work on dealing with the shadow. So some of the techniques that I use personally to deal with my shadows, and I'm going to share my favorite one because it was so simple and so effective. One way to deal with your shadows is just mentally just kind of gather them up in a room. Okay, so you have shame and guilt and fear and desire, whatever. They're all standing around in a room, let's say. None of them are demanding any attention. You're just there in the room with these shadows. So one really effective approach is to go up to one of the shadows, just pick anyone, and introduce yourself. Say, hello, shadow. You're my shadow. My name is Linda. And I think we should have a conversation and talk about our roles and why you are important, but you don't always need to be in the spotlight, and that I appreciate you, and that when I need you, I know you're going to come to me. But when I don't need you, I might ask you just if you could take a back seat or just step away and let me work on this situation in a more positive way, using some of the techniques that I have. So again, going back to fear being the biggest one, I think that's the one I personally work on the most. But it can also be, sometimes I'm self-doubt. Self-doubt starts taking control, and then that's making things confused because the doubt is saying, well, I have to do this, but I don't know if I can do it. So, the shadows tend to start taking over. So again, if you can just maybe pause first, be aware that they're there, acknowledge them, take a pause, and just have a little bit of a conversation. And then I find that it's much easier to move on and let go of it. And here, this is a frequency chart showing again some of where your chakras are at when you're feeling some of these things. And of course, our goal is to at least get in here into this level 200, where you have the courage to talk to these shadows, the courage to set them straight, and be able to move on and do what you need to do without becoming paralyzed and stuck. Because so many times we just get stuck in one emotion and we just can't seem to get ourselves forward. So yeah, so those are these charts. I know we're almost out of time, but I'm also wanted to share some of the other ways that I deal with my shadows. And I just have a small list here. And one of them is giving gratitude. And I mean giving gratitude for everything. Just have gratitude in your heart. Love and gratitude. Be happy for the sunny day that's outside. Be happy if it's a cloudy day and it's raining. We need the rain. Everything is necessary in our life in order to grow and become better people, better humans, take care of ourselves. Another, I'm sure everyone knows this, is meditation. Just make yourself a meditation practice. Doesn't have to be very long, even 5 minutes a day, just 5 minutes. And if you don't have 5 minutes, do 3 minutes. The point is to just start a practice and try and get it in every single day, because this is what is going to build your muscle memory, your brain muscle memory, into where you can go to when the shadows are starting to become overpowering. Another good thing, of course, is breathing techniques, taking long, deep breaths, using your diaphragm, bring it out, not the shoulders, because we carry so much tension already in our shoulders. And if we're breathing up here, this is very shallow. We want to really get it down into our diaphragm, expand our belly, and then as we're breathing in all this expansion, then we breathe it back out slowly and really try and contract your stomach and your belly button. Try and pull it back to your spine so you let all of it out, and then just keep cycling this until you feel like everything's starting to settle down and calm down. Another great practice is yoga, which I do 4 times a week. Another thing that I found very useful is Qigong or Tai Chi. I'm going to give you some resources. That'd be my next slide here. To some free available things that you can do to start learning how to calm yourself down and deal with your emotions, your shadows. And not only that, it's good for everything in your body. One of them is the Qigong that's offered Monday through Friday, 12:30 to 1 Central. It's hosted by actually a friend of mine, Bill Miller, who started doing it when we were all locked down in COVID, and he's still doing it 5 days a week. It's absolutely free. There's the Zoom link. There's another a healing technique that I like to use, which is sound. Sound is vibration. And if you go back to the vibrational chart, if you're somewhere down here in the suffering or getting by, just having that sound vibration meditation is going to naturally pull up all the energy through your chakras in your body. So that's the sound vibration. This person his name is Shane. He does it on YouTube, and he has a Facebook live that he also does it on. And I put that link in there as well. And then another practitioner that I like, and she does a lot of like doing some reading, like angel card, or a little bit of Akashic records, and just a little bit of readings that she does live sometimes. And if you tune in, she might pick you and just give you a free reading. And she's wonderful. I've worked with her a lot. She's very, very experienced, and she just does a really great job in everything that she does. She's actually stationed out, lives out in Louisville, Kentucky. So I put that in there too, if anyone would like, if you're interested, to look at her Facebook page. So I know we're out of time. I was going to ask if there's any questions or anything, any comments.
I think we should go long. We started late too, so hopefully, because I'd love for you to be able to take your questions, and then also to do the meditation if you have time too.
Okay, yeah, I can. Wait, let's see. Let me look. Is there any questions? I'm looking in the chat. I don't see anything, but if you do, just raise your hand or just ask. And then, yeah, if you'd like to and you have time and you want to stay, just going to do a little bit of a grounding meditation, which is a very good practice to start even before you do any of these other things, or just in the morning when you get up, or even before you go to bed. It's very simple to do. So first of all, just get yourself up in your chair, nice straight back. You can have your hands on your lap. Your feet should be flat on the floor, because our feet is what anchors us, what grounds us into Mother Earth and the earth energy that we can channel through our own body, through our chakras, to raise our vibration. So get a nice good posture, put your feet flat on the ground, and just start to breathe very slowly. Inhale to about the count of 5. Hold for just a moment, then exhale all of it through your mouth or through your nose. But the most important part here is to use your belly. So breathe in again to the count of 5 or more. Breathe out to the count of 5 or more. Start building a rhythm with your breathing, expanding the belly as we take a deep breath to inhale, and then collapsing as we exhale. Now imagine that you have roots that are growing out of your body. They're growing right into the earth. They're spreading. These roots are growing, expanding, going deep, deep into Mother Earth, bringing all that nice, beautiful earth energy up into our body, through our feet, through our chakras, up, all the way up into our crown chakra. Breathe and try and pull all this energy in. You might start to feel something in one or more areas of your body. And if you do, that is the energy moving through your chakra system. You might start to feel a sensation in the root chakra, which is the bottom, very bottom of your spine, up through the sacral, which is about in your belly, to the solar plexus, which is just about where your diaphragm is. Just keep breathing it up. Breathe it up through the heart chakra. The heart chakra also likes to expand outward. So you might feel a little bit of energy moving like parallel to the ground out through your heart chakra. And just keep bringing it up and bringing it up and breathing, using your belly into your throat chakra. A lot of people get stuck and in their throat chakra, I would say solar plexus, heart, and throat. And when something that happens when you have a block in your throat chakra is that you're not able to express yourself. So trying to keep nice, clear energy flowing through your body is eventually going to open everything up and make it much easier to breathe, much easier to speak, much easier to feel, and be in touch with what your emotions are and keeping them at a higher level, learning how to accept some drawbacks, things that might trigger you, that make you angry. Instead of letting yourself get too angry and go to red and lower your vibration, just think of it as, I don't want to give up my energy to this because it's not worth it to me. This is just going to make me feel bad and do nothing else for the situation. So just breathe it in from Mother Earth. Try and pull it up into your body. And the Qigong will help this very much as well, because you actually will be doing some movements that pull this energy up into your body and let go of anything that's not serving you and call in the energy that is serving you and that is good for you. Let's end with a few more breaths. We can just clear it out, breathe it in, and let it go. Again. And now when you're ready, you can open your eyes. I hope that helped everybody feel a little bit more calm, more positive, and just better overall. And I hope you can take that with you throughout your day and do this little practice when you can, especially if you feel yourself getting triggered. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Linda. There was a question in the chat too about getting to that high level. And so that meditation you just guided us through answered it.
Okay, good.
Right?
Is there anyone else have any comment, question, anything that you do that works really well that you want to share?
I'm going to post a free resource. Sorry that the link is so long. If anyone liked IFS for this Black Friday, they did a free, Pessy did a free immersion. I think it's really long, but it's broken down into topics that you might like. Don't buy anything. It's easy to just say no to the CEU. So it's 100% free. And it's got a whole bunch of really good resources. And if you like the parts work, but we will gather even the links from your side, Linda, and other things and put it all together so that we can follow up. I know everyone has to go. Thanks for staying. Thanks for coming.
Yes, thank you. And thank you I very much. I really appreciate your presentation. And I'm really, I'm going to try what you recommended, because I have tried for lucid dreaming, but I haven't been successful yet.
Okay.
I also know that it takes practice, like anything else. The more you practice, the better you'll become.
Yeah, and I watched this movie, Waking Life. I think you could either rent it on Amazon, and every time I watch it, I have a lucid dream. So there's other things you could do, but that incubation is the top trick. But yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. We'll be sure to. I'm gonna stop the recording. If I can figure out where to do that. But if you could stay on for a second, Linda, or actually, could I just call you after this?
Yes, that's
Okay, cool. All right.
great. Thank you again.
I'll just say goodbye and leave, and then that'll stop the recording. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.